The silver ship moved through space like a gentle breeze, its surface gleaming under the light of distant stars. Inside the vessel, Commander Zexai stood before a large window, watching the blue and green planet that humans called Earth. His tall, thin body swayed slightly as he moved, and his large eyes reflected the colors of the world below. The Valerian commander had traveled across many galaxies, but this small planet fascinated him more than any other world he had seen. 3 different alien species had joined together for this mission. The Valerians like Zexai could live in the cold vacuum of space for short times and ate energy directly from stars. The Corthan looked like walking crystals that sparkled with inner light and could sleep for hundreds of years without aging. The Thrix resembled giant insects with hard shells and could grow back lost arms or legs within days. All 3 species were strong and tough in their own ways. Dr. Lisa Martinez sat in her small research station on Earth's moon, staring at the strange symbols on her computer screen. She had been studying space signals for 5 years, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The message was clear and came from somewhere beyond Earth's solar system. Someone or something was trying to talk to humanity. Lisa's hands shook as she typed her response, knowing that her words might be the first official contact between humans and alien life. The aliens had been watching Earth for months before making contact. They studied human cities, watched human behavior, and recorded everything they saw. What they discovered worried them greatly. Humans seemed incredibly weak and fragile compared to every other intelligent species they had met. Humans needed to breathe air constantly, required specific temperatures to survive, and had to eat and drink multiple times each day just to stay alive. Commander Zexai read the reports from his science team with growing concern. Humans had thin skin that could be cut easily, soft bodies that bruised from minor impacts, and bones that broke under pressure. They could not survive in their own planet's oceans without special equipment, and many died simply from falling down. The commander wondered how such delicate creatures had managed to develop technology and civilization. The first meeting was arranged to take place on a neutral location between Earth and the alien ship. Jack Powell, a human diplomat with gray hair and kind eyes, joined Dr. Martinez for the historic encounter. He had spent years negotiating between different countries on Earth, but talking to aliens would be his greatest challenge. Both humans wore special suits to protect them in the artificial environment of the meeting station. When the aliens first saw the humans in person, their concerns deepened. The humans looked so small and vulnerable compared to the towering Valerians, the solid crystal forms of the Corthan, and the armored bodies of the Thrix. Commander Zexai noticed how carefully the humans moved, as if they were afraid of hurting themselves. He saw how they needed machines to help them breathe and stay warm. Everything about human biology seemed designed for failure. Dr. Martinez tried to explain human evolution and adaptation to the alien visitors. She told them how humans had spread across their entire planet, living in hot deserts, cold mountains, and every environment in between. But the aliens only saw this as evidence of human desperation rather than strength. They believed humans were forced to live in dangerous places because they were too weak to claim the safe areas. The Valerian science officer, Veltar, took detailed notes about human physiology. He recorded that humans leaked salt water from their skin when stressed or overheated. He noted that they required 8 hours of unconsciousness every day to function properly. He observed that they consumed dead plant and animal matter for energy instead of drawing power directly from natural sources. Every observation reinforced his belief that humans were among the most inefficient life forms in the galaxy. Jack Powell noticed the aliens' concerned expressions and gentle treatment during their conversations. The aliens spoke softly, moved slowly around the humans, and constantly asked if the humans needed rest or medical attention. While the humans appreciated the kindness, they began to realize that the aliens saw them as sick or disabled beings who needed special care and protection. The Corthan representative, Crystal, communicated through musical tones that translated into speech. She expressed amazement that humans had survived long enough to develop space travel. In her crystal mind, humans appeared to be a species that should have gone extinct shortly after evolving. The fact that there were billions of humans on Earth seemed like an impossible miracle to her. Thrix delegate Hickson examined the humans with scientific curiosity, much like a researcher studying an unusual specimen. His insect-like eyes noticed every small movement and reaction. He was particularly puzzled by the humans' emotional responses, which caused visible changes in their skin color and breathing patterns. To Hickson, humans seemed to be constantly fighting internal battles just to remain functional. As the first meeting concluded, the aliens felt a mixture of fascination and protective concern for humanity. They agreed to establish formal diplomatic relations, but privately they worried about bringing such fragile beings into contact with the broader galactic community. The universe was dangerous, and they doubted that humans could survive the challenges that awaited any spacefaring species. Commander Zexhai prepared his initial report for the Galactic Council, describing humans as an intelligent but extremely vulnerable species that would require significant protection and assistance to survive contact with other civilizations. He recommended establishing humanity as a protected species, similar to how his people managed endangered animal populations on primitive worlds. Neither the humans nor the aliens realized that their first impressions would soon be challenged in ways that would change everything they thought they knew about strength, weakness, and the true nature of survival. The seeds of a much larger revelation had been planted, waiting for the right moment to grow into something that would shock the entire galaxy. 3 months after first contact, a small alien base appeared on Earth's moon, built from materials that seemed to grow rather than be assembled. The structure looked like a mixture of crystal, metal, and living tissue, perfectly designed to house the 3 different alien species. Human scientists watched in amazement as the building shaped itself according to the needs of its inhabitants, creating different atmospheric zones and gravity levels for each species. Dr. Kevin Barnes arrived at the lunar base as part of the first human research team. He was a biologist who specialized in studying how different creatures adapted to their environments. Kevin had spent years examining life in Earth's most extreme locations, from deep ocean trenches to frozen polar regions. Now he would study beings from entirely different worlds, and they would study him in return. Chief Science Officer Veltar welcomed the human researchers with obvious concern for their safety. He had prepared special chambers with Earth-like conditions, complete with backup life support systems and emergency medical equipment. The Valerian scientists treated the humans like delicate guests who might break at any moment. He constantly monitored their breathing, heart rates, and stress levels, ready to intervene if anything seemed wrong. Dr. Amy Foster joined the research team as a specialist in alien communication and behavior. She was fascinated by how the 3 alien species worked together despite their very different natures. The Valerians communicated through complex light patterns that danced across their skin. The Corthans spoke in musical frequencies that could shatter glass if not carefully controlled. The Thrix used chemical signals and precise body movements to convey meaning. Amy spent hours learning these different languages while the aliens studied human speech and writing. As the cultural exchange progressed, the aliens became increasingly worried about human survival instincts. They observed human researchers taking what seemed like unnecessary risks, touching unfamiliar objects, eating new foods, and exploring areas without extensive safety checks. Commander Zexhai noted in his reports that humans appeared to have very poor judgment. When it came to avoiding danger, the aliens were particularly disturbed when they learned about human recreational activities. Dr. Foster showed them videos of humans skiing down steep mountains, jumping out of aircraft with fabric parachutes, and swimming in turbulent ocean waters. The alien observers watched in horror as humans deliberately put themselves in life-threatening situations for something called entertainment or sport. Veltar studied the videos repeatedly, trying to understand the logic behind human behavior. He could not comprehend why any intelligent being would voluntarily engage in activities that had high probabilities of injury or death. The concept of seeking danger for pleasure was completely foreign to his methodical, safety-focused mind. He concluded that humans must suffer from a species-wide mental disorder that prevented them from recognizing obvious threats. The Corthan, Representative Crystal, was equally puzzled by human recreational choices. Her crystal body could withstand enormous pressures and temperatures, but she would never voluntarily expose herself to unnecessary risks. When she learned that humans climbed tall mountains simply to reach the top, she assumed this was some form of religious ritual or survival training. The idea that humans did these things for fun seemed impossible to her logical mind. Hickson, the Thrix medical officer, became obsessed with studying human injury reports. He collected data on human accidents, medical emergencies, and recovery times. The statistics amazed him because humans seemed to hurt themselves constantly, yet somehow continued to function as a society. In his reports, he described humans as a species that was constantly on the verge of extinction but too stubborn to die. Human. Ambassador Rachel Green tried to explain the concept of adventure sports to the Alien Council during a formal cultural presentation. She described marathon running, rock climbing, and extreme skiing as ways that humans tested their limits and found personal satisfaction. The aliens listened with expressions of growing alarm and confusion. They interpreted these activities as evidence that humans had lost touch with basic survival instincts. When Rachel mentioned that some humans ran 26 miles without stopping, just for the challenge and achievement, the aliens fell silent. Commander Zexhai asked if this was a form of punishment or exile ritual. The idea that beings would run such distances voluntarily, without being chased by predators or seeking food, was incomprehensible to him. Veltar immediately began calculating the energy expenditure and physiological stress involved, concluding that such activity should cause permanent damage or death. The cultural exchange revealed other disturbing human behaviors that worried the aliens. They learned that humans often worked long hours without rest, stayed awake for extended periods during emergencies, and pushed their bodies beyond normal limits during times of crisis. The aliens saw these behaviors as signs of a species that did not understand its own limitations. Dr. Barnes tried to explain human resilience and adaptability to his alien colleagues. He described how humans had survived ice ages, plagues, and natural disasters throughout their history. He told them about human explorers who had traveled to the most dangerous places on Earth and beyond. But the aliens only heard stories of a species that consistently made poor decisions and somehow managed to survive through luck rather than wisdom. As weeks passed, the aliens' protective instincts toward humanity grew stronger. They began developing safety protocols for human visitors, creating detailed medical procedures for treating human injuries, and designing protective equipment to keep humans safe in alien environments. They treated humans like valuable but fragile artifacts that needed constant care and supervision. The human researchers began to notice the aliens' condescending attitude. Though they tried to remain diplomatic about it, Dr. Foster observed that the aliens spoke to humans the way adults might speak to small children, using simple words and showing exaggerated concern for their welfare. Kevin Barnes noticed that the aliens would not allow humans to handle certain equipment or visit particular areas of the base, claiming it was for human safety. Despite growing frustration with the aliens' overprotective behavior, the humans continued their research and cultural exchange. They learned fascinating details about alien technology, biology, and civilization. They discovered that the three alien species had formed an alliance based on mutual benefit and shared scientific goals. They also learned that the galaxy contained hundreds of intelligent species, most of which were far more physically robust than humans. The stage was being set for a confrontation that would challenge everyone's assumptions about strength, weakness, and the true nature of survival. Neither humans nor aliens realized that their carefully maintained diplomatic relationship was about to be tested in ways that would reveal shocking truths about human capabilities and force everyone to reconsider what they thought they knew about each other. The tension had been building for weeks beneath the polite surface of diplomatic relations. Human researchers and diplomats were growing tired of being treated like children who needed constant supervision and protection. The aliens continued Their well-meaning but increasingly frustrating efforts to keep humans safe from every possible danger, real or imagined. The breaking point came during a formal cultural demonstration event held in the main assembly hall of the lunar base. Representatives from all three alien species had gathered to observe human customs and traditions. The humans had prepared presentations about Earth's history, art, and achievements, hoping to show the aliens that humanity was more capable than they appeared to believe. Danny Clark stood at the back of the assembly hall, watching the presentations with growing irritation. He was a former Marine who had served in some of Earth's most challenging environments before becoming a security liaison between human and alien forces. Danny had run marathons on 6 different continents, competed in ultra-distance races, and completed military training exercises that would challenge even the toughest soldiers. Yet here he was, being treated like a fragile invalid by aliens who had never seen what humans could really accomplish. The presentations were going well until Crystal, the Corthan representative, made a comment that changed everything. During a discussion about human exploration and discovery, she expressed her concern about humanity's prospects for survival in the broader galaxy. Her musical voice translated into words that cut through the diplomatic atmosphere like a knife through silk. "We understand that humans have achieved remarkable things on their own world," Crystal said, her crystal body flashing with patterns of light. "However, we must be realistic about human limitations when considering their future among the galactic community. Your species appears to lack the physical resilience necessary for the challenges that await any spacefaring civilization." The human delegation fell silent. Dr. Martinez felt her face flush with anger and embarrassment. Jack Powell gripped his hands together to keep from responding too quickly. Other human researchers exchanged glances of frustration and wounded pride. They had worked hard to build positive relationships with the aliens, but this felt like a direct insult to their entire species. Commander Zexhai tried to soften his colleague's words, but only made things worse. "What Crystal means is that we have great respect for human intelligence and creativity," he said, his tall frame bending slightly in what humans had learned was a gesture of concern. "However, we have observed that humans are easily injured and require very specific conditions to survive. We worry that the galaxy contains dangers that might prove too challenging for human biology." Danny Clark had heard enough. He stepped forward from his position at the back of the hall, his military bearing evident in every movement. The aliens turned to look at him with their typical expressions of gentle concern, as if worried that his simple act of walking might somehow injure him. "With respect, Commander," Danny said, his voice calm but firm, "I think you might be underestimating what humans are capable of accomplishing." His words carried the quiet confidence of someone who had tested his limits many times and knew exactly what those limits were. Veltar, the Valerian science officer, responded with what he considered kindness and scientific objectivity. "We have studied human physiology extensively. Mr. Clark, your species has many admirable qualities, but physical endurance and resilience are not among your strengths. We have seen the data on human injury rates, recovery times, and environmental limitations." The condescending tone in the alien's voice was the final straw for Danny. He had spent his entire adult life pushing the boundaries of human performance, and he was not about to let these well-meaning aliens dismiss humanity's capabilities without a proper demonstration. "What if I could show you something that might change your opinion about human endurance?" Danny asked, looking directly at Commander Zexhai. "Would you be willing to observe a demonstration of human physical capabilities?" The aliens exchanged concerned glances. They had seen humans engage in what they considered dangerous recreational activities, and they had no desire to watch a human injure himself for the sake of proving a point. However, diplomatic protocol required them to consider the humans. "Request, what sort of demonstration did you have in mind?" Commander Zexhai asked cautiously, already preparing to refuse if the activity seemed too dangerous. Danny smiled, with the confidence of someone who had run through deserts, over mountains, and across frozen landscapes. I propose to run 100 miles without stopping, right here where you can observe and monitor everything. No special equipment, no performance-enhancing substances. Just a human doing what humans have been doing for thousands of years. The silence that followed was so complete that the only sounds were the gentle hums and clicks of the base's life support systems. The aliens stared at Danny with expressions of shock and horror. To them, his proposal sounded like an elaborate form of suicide disguised as a sporting event. Dr. Patricia Webb, a human sports medicine specialist who had joined the research team, immediately understood what Danny was proposing. She had studied ultra-endurance athletes for years and knew that running 100 miles, while extremely challenging, was well within the capabilities of properly trained humans. She also realized that the aliens had no framework for understanding what they were about to witness. "Danny," Dr. Webb said carefully, "are you certain about this? The aliens don't understand human endurance physiology. They're going to think. They're watching you kill yourself slowly." Hickson, the Thrick's medical officer, stepped forward with obvious alarm. "Mr. Clark, such an activity would cause severe tissue damage, organ failure, and possibly death. We cannot permit you to harm yourself for the sake of proving a point. Your species is too valuable to risk losing members to unnecessary physical stress." The protective concern in the alien's voice only strengthened Danny's resolve. He had competed in 100-mile races before and knew his capabilities. More importantly, he understood that this demonstration might be humanity's best chance to show the aliens that their assumptions about human fragility were fundamentally wrong. "Dr. Webb," Danny said, turning to the sports medicine specialist, "would you be willing to monitor my condition and explain to our alien friends what they're seeing? I think it's time they learned what humans can really do when we put our minds to it." Dr. Webb nodded slowly, realizing the significance of what was about to happen. This would not just be a test of one man's endurance, but a demonstration that could change how an entire galaxy viewed humanity. She began mentally, preparing for the most important scientific observation of her career. The preparation took 3 days, during which the aliens desperately tried to talk Danny out of his proposed demonstration. They brought in their best medical experts, consulted their databases of known species, and ran countless computer simulations. Every analysis confirmed their worst fears about what would happen to a human who attempted to run 100 miles without stopping. Commander HFY personally pleaded with Danny to reconsider. "Mr. Clark, our medical projections show that your cardiovascular system will fail somewhere between mile 20 and mile 30. Your body temperature will rise to lethal levels. Your muscles will begin breaking down and releasing toxins into your bloodstream. We cannot stand by and watch a member of your species destroy himself." Danny listened patiently to each concern, then calmly explained that humans had been running extreme distances for thousands of years. He told them about persistence hunting, where early humans would chase animals for hours or even days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. He described modern ultramarathons where hundreds of humans regularly completed races of 50, 100, or even 200 miles. The aliens listened with expressions of growing disbelief. Dr. Webb worked with the alien medical team to set up comprehensive monitoring equipment. She explained human exercise physiology in detail, describing how the human body could burn fat for energy during extended periods of activity, how sweating provided efficient cooling, and how the cardiovascular system adapted to sustained effort. The aliens took careful notes but remained convinced that they were about to witness a preventable tragedy. The track was prepared in one of the base's larger chambers, with artificial gravity set to Earth normal and atmospheric conditions identical to sea level on Earth. The aliens installed every piece of monitoring equipment they possessed, creating a complete medical observation station that could track Danny's vital signs in real time. They also positioned emergency medical teams at strategic points around the track, ready to intervene the moment his body began to fail. Hickson, the Thrick's medical officer, made one final attempt to stop the demonstration. "Mr. Clark, in all our travels across the galaxy, we have never encountered a species that voluntarily subjects itself to such extreme physical stress. The most athletic members of our civilizations would not attempt a fraction of what you are proposing. Please reconsider this dangerous course of action. Danny smiled and began his warm-up routine, stretching muscles and joints with the practiced ease of an experienced endurance athlete. Doctor, you're about to learn something new about humans. We might look fragile, but we're tougher than we appear. Sometimes the strongest thing about us is that we don't know when to quit. As Danny began running, the aliens watched with fascination and horror. Within the first mile, his heart rate increased significantly, his breathing became rapid and deep, and sweat began forming on his skin. To the alien observers, these were clear signs of immediate physiological distress. They prepared their medical equipment and waited for his inevitable collapse. Dr. Webb provided running commentary, explaining each change in Danny's condition to the increasingly worried aliens. His heart rate is elevated because his cardiovascular system is delivering more oxygen to his muscles. The increased breathing is normal for sustained aerobic activity. The sweating is his body's cooling system engaging to maintain optimal operating temperature. By mile 5, the aliens were convinced that Danny was experiencing some form of medical emergency. His skin had turned red, his breathing was labored, and moisture poured from his body at an alarming rate. Veltar suggested stopping the demonstration immediately, but Dr. Webb assured him that everything they were seeing was completely normal for human endurance exercise. At mile 10, something interesting began to happen. Danny's breathing settled into a steady rhythm, his pace became more relaxed, and his heart rate stabilized at what the aliens considered an impossibly high level. Dr. Webb explained that his body was finding its optimal efficiency zone for sustained effort, but the aliens remained skeptical that such physiological stress could be maintained safely. The first 20 miles passed without the cardiovascular failure that the aliens had predicted. Danny ran with the smooth, economical motion of an experienced ultra-runner, his body automatically adjusting to maintain the most efficient pace for the long distance ahead. The alien medical teams watched their instruments in amazement as his vital signs remained stable despite the continued physical exertion. By mile 30, the aliens began to realize that their predictions had been wrong. Danny showed no signs of the organ failure or tissue breakdown that their models had forecast. Instead, he appeared to have settled into a sustainable rhythm that he could potentially maintain for hours. Commander HFY sent urgent communications to his ship, requesting consultation with specialists who might explain what they were witnessing. At mile 50, the halfway point, the aliens were sending reports to their homeworlds that would challenge everything their civilizations believed about biological limitations. Danny stopped briefly for water and food, consuming simple carbohydrates and electrolytes with the practiced efficiency of an athlete who understood his body's needs. The aliens watched in amazement as he resumed running with no apparent difficulty. Dr. Webb continued her educational commentary, explaining how human metabolism could shift between different fuel sources during extended exercise, how the cooling system of sweating prevented dangerous overheating, and how psychological factors allowed humans to continue functioning despite physical discomfort. The aliens listened with growing fascination as their understanding of human biology was completely revolutionized. Mile 60 passed, then 70, then 80. The aliens had stopped predicting Danny's imminent collapse and begun documenting what they now recognized as an extraordinary demonstration of a previously unknown form of biological endurance. Their reports described a species capable of sustained physical output that exceeded anything in their databases of known intelligent life forms. As Danny approached mile 90, the alien observers realized they were witnessing something that would change galactic understanding of human capabilities. They began to comprehend that what they had interpreted as weakness might actually be a completely different kind of strength, one that their own robust physiologies could not match. The final 10 miles were a testament to human determination and the power of mental resilience. Danny's body was tired, but his cardiovascular system continued to function. His cooling system remained effective, and his muscles kept propelling him forward. The aliens watched in silent amazement as he completed each mile with steady determination. When Danny crossed the finish line after 18 hours and 17 minutes of continuous running. The aliens stood in stunned silence. Their medical equipment confirmed that he had completed 100 miles under his own power, suffering no permanent damage and requiring only rest and nutrition to recover completely. Everything they thought they knew about human limitations had just been proven wrong. Danny Clark crossed the finish line with the steady, measured pace of someone who could have continued running if necessary. His shirt was soaked with sweat. His legs showed the fatigue of 18 hours of continuous movement, but his eyes remained bright and alert. He raised his arms in a gesture of completion rather than victory, as if finishing a 100-mile run was simply another task to be accomplished rather than an impossible feat of endurance. The alien observers stood frozen in place, their various forms of expression showing identical amazement despite their very different physiologies. Commander HFY's elongated features registered shock that translated across species barriers. Crystal's crystal body flickered with light patterns that indicated profound confusion and recalculation of previously held beliefs. Hickson's insect-like eyes remained fixed on the monitoring equipment, as if staring at the data long enough might make it change to something more believable. Dr. Webb immediately began her post-exercise examination of Danny, checking his vital signs and overall condition while explaining each finding to the bewildered aliens. His core temperature is elevated but within safe ranges for human physiology. His heart rate is returning to normal levels as his cardiovascular system begins recovery. His hydration status is good, and there are no signs of the organ damage or tissue breakdown that your models predicted. The medical readings were undeniable proof that everything the aliens thought they knew about human limitations was fundamentally incorrect. Danny's body had not only survived the extreme physical stress of running 100 miles, but had done so while maintaining stable function throughout the entire ordeal. The alien's most sophisticated medical equipment confirmed that he would recover completely within days, suffering no permanent damage from his demonstration. Veltar approached Danny with the careful movements of someone whose entire understanding of biology had just been overturned. Mr. Clark, our computer models indicated that your species should not be capable of sustaining such physical output for more than a few hours at most. How is it possible that you completed this distance without experiencing organ failure or tissue breakdown? Danny smiled as he stretched his tired muscles, displaying the casual confidence of someone who had pushed his limits many times before. Doctor, I think you've been measuring the wrong things when you look at human strength. We might not be as tough as your crystalline friends or as adaptable as the Valerians, but we have something else that you haven't accounted for in your calculations. Commander HFY stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his amazement. What do you mean? Our analysis of human physiology has been extremely thorough. We have studied your cardiovascular system, your muscular structure, your metabolic processes, and your neurological responses. What factor could we have overlooked? Dr. Webb answered for Danny while she continued her medical examination. Commander, you studied all the individual components of human biology, but you missed the most important element of human endurance capability. You didn't account for our psychological resilience and our willingness to continue functioning despite discomfort, fatigue, and physical stress. The concept was foreign to the alien observers, who had evolved efficient physiologies that avoided unnecessary stress and discomfort. Their species had developed technologies and social structures that eliminated most forms of physical hardship from their daily lives. The idea that a species would voluntarily endure suffering as a form of achievement was completely outside their experience. Crystal's musical voice carried notes of confusion as she tried to understand what she had witnessed. Are you suggesting that humans possess some form of mental override that allows them to ignore their body's warning signals? Such a trait would seem counterproductive for survival, as pain and fatigue exist to prevent harmful overexertion. Danny finished his stretching routine and sat down to begin his recovery process, still breathing heavily but showing no signs of distress. Ma'am, human evolution didn't happen in a safe, controlled environment like your civilizations have created. We evolved on a planet that was constantly trying to kill us through weather, predators, disease, and natural disasters. The humans who survived were the ones who could keep going even when everything hurt and the situation seemed hopeless. The implications of Danny's words began to dawn on the alien observers. They realized that they had been evaluating human capabilities based on their own evolutionary experiences, which had favored efficiency and safety over raw endurance and determination. Their species had developed in environments where intelligence and cooperation eliminated the need for extreme physical resilience. Hickson examined the data from his medical scanners one more time, as if hoping to find some explanation that would make sense within his existing understanding of biology. The readings are consistent with a healthy organism that has undergone extreme but sustainable physical stress. I cannot find any evidence of the physiological breakdown that should have occurred based on our models of biological limitations. Over. The following days, as Danny recovered from his demonstration with no apparent ill effects, the aliens began a complete reassessment of human capabilities and potential. They realized that their protective attitude toward humanity had been based on fundamental misunderstandings about the nature of human strength and resilience. Commander HFY sent detailed reports to the Galactic Council recommending immediate revision of humanity's status within the interstellar community. His communications described a species that possessed unique forms of endurance and determination that could not be measured by conventional biological standards. He suggested that humans might actually be among the most resilient species in the galaxy. Despite their apparent physical fragility, the news spread quickly through alien scientific communities, challenging established theories about biological limitations and survival strategies. Research teams from dozens of species requested permission to study human endurance capabilities, leading to collaborative projects that would revolutionize understanding of both human and alien physiology. Dr. Martinez found herself fielding communications from alien universities, research institutes, and medical centers across the galaxy. The scientific community was fascinated by the discovery of a species that had evolved psychological resilience as a primary survival strategy rather than relying solely on physical toughness or technological solutions. 3 weeks after Danny's demonstration, the aliens' attitude toward humanity had completely transformed. Instead of treating humans as fragile beings who needed protection, they began to view them as incredibly tough creatures who could survive and thrive in conditions that would challenge even the most robust alien species. The final revelation came when Danny casually mentioned to his alien friends that some humans had run even farther distances than his 100-mile demonstration. He told them about multi-day ultramarathons where humans ran for days with minimal sleep, about adventure races that combined running with swimming and climbing, and about explorers who had traveled on foot across entire continents just to see what was there. The aliens listened with expressions of awe and newfound respect, finally understanding that they had encountered a species unlike any other in their galactic experience. Humans were not the weakest intelligent beings in the universe, but rather the most determined ones, capable of achieving impossible things through sheer force of will and refusal to accept defeat. As diplomatic relations continued to develop, the foundation had been laid for a partnership based on mutual respect rather than protective concern. The aliens had learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from avoiding challenge and hardship, but from embracing it and pushing through to the other side. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not despite their apparent limitations, but because of their unique ability to transcend those limitations through determination, endurance, and the simple refusal to give up when things became difficult.